So Walker, what I wanted to share with you really, this is going to be long and drawn out. Okay, so just buckle up your seatbelt and turn your ears on. I listened to this podcast. This is so bad because I don't even remember the name of it, and I listen to it like at least once a week. But anyway, it's about this lady, this white woman who has left her husband, and she's just like really just spilling out emotionally about the whole process of everything. And then I'm glad I didn't give the name because now I can't really spoil it, but it turns out she has like a terminal illness. And yeah,
Jesus
yeah,
Christ.
yeah. And so all of that goes into this gripping podcast or whatever. So, but the one I listened to yesterday morning, she was talking. The emphasis of it was on her marriage being unhappy was essentially the reason she left, or she pressed her then husband to allow the divorce. And I just, this was yesterday. I did a lot of reflecting yesterday over the past 11 years of the marriage to my wife and I. And I couldn't shake this one, Walker. And I wish I could call her up and just tell her this one thing. And that is, marriages are not supposed to be happy, right? You can argue that marriages aren't supposed to be unhappy. But we as humans, as, breathing mammals or whatever we are not equipped to be happy long term. There's always going to be something that delivers a level of unhappiness. And Walker, being transparent, 11 years ago today, I was actually in Hawaii. Lord have mercy, can we go back? But I know entering the union with my wife, I even was guilty of saying, this woman has made me happy. This woman is going to make me happy for the rest of my life. Walker, I realized in marriage that there were a lot of times where this woman did not make me happy. So it made me, or during the reflection, like, I'm listening to a little bit of the podcast and I'll go into a reflective mode. This is why I was on the treadmill. And then I'll just go back and forth. And I think about the times to where, my wife didn't particularly make me happy, right? Think about how selfish that is, right? But I thought about marriage. What is it? What is it really? And it's cliche, especially if you're one of these people like me who are obsessed with marital dynamics and listen to a lot of people talk about marriage and stuff like that. But for me, Walker, it is making that choice to choose that person despite anything else, despite not being happy, despite, leaving the toilet seat up, despite having to reclassify traditional gender roles. I am choosing this person regardless. And I think those attributes really form a strong love for a person. But Walker, I gotta say this though. None of this involves happiness. None of it does. Now, for those of you who aren't married, I don't want you to think I'm casting a doom and gloom scenario or situation on marriage. Marriage is great. I'm a proponent of marriage. I've been in this thing 11 years. I'm trying to get the next 11, right? But I think entertainment, TV, movies over sensationalize what marriage is supposed to look like. Yes, you're going to disagree. Yes, you're going to fight. Yes, you are going to do things that your spouse disagrees with. Yes, your spouse is going to do things you disagree with. But at the end of the day, Walker, I firmly believe if you make the choice to choose that person and to really, really just take the restrictor plate, off that thing you call love, that's what marriage is about. But it ain't always going to be happy. So I felt a way about her harping on this. Well, I was in an unhappy marriage. I was in an unhappy marriage and it just didn't work out. And I'd been in an unhappy marriage for 4 years. And it was just, I would just come home and just be so unhappy. Woman, if you don't, if you don't go somewhere with that mess, forgive me for sounding like a cynic, but it just made me think. Even in the midst of all the unhappiness I've experienced in the 11 years that I've been married to my beautiful wife, it doesn't. I don't know. I still love her. I still make the choice to love her every day. And I just couldn't get around that. What do you think, Walker?
Let me ask you this, because I was really honing in and listening to what you were saying.
For once.
Do you look at being unhappy as an event, or is it someone's overall feelings about their relationship?
Can I answer both to that?
You can answer however you want.
Because I think they work together, right? So think about it. Think about it. I'll give you a realistic scenario, okay? And this is y'all coming into our marriage. I don't care. I'm transparent. Again, 11 years ago to the day, like we were at this point, I think we were in Honolulu, okay? So I remember us checking into our hotel on Waikiki Beach, right? There was something I asked my wife to do that she took issue with. You know, we hadn't been married 24 hours at this point yet. Excuse me. And it turned out this thing made her unhappy, right? This is just like on the marriage hadn't even started marinating yet, right? So she told me about it. You know, I was at a different place mentally, especially from a maturation standpoint. So I defended my actions, and we got in a little skirmish. We got a little verbal skirmish, right? And on our honeymoon, Walker, you know. But me being selfish, me being very immature, me wanting to defend my point, because like I've said on this podcast before, during our first 3 years of marriage, you couldn't tell me anything. I had everything figured out. It was stupid. But that was the dumbest I've ever been in our marriage. But anyway, but that was an event that made my wife unhappy. So if these events continue to happen over time, yeah, that can make the whole situation unhappy. That's why I think both of the I guess the choices you gave me to answer that question, I think they can coexist. Does that make any sense?
Sure. And I guess to your point, what you're saying is if you're in a relationship where I don't know if there's communications or not about the things that are making a person unhappy, and a person is unyielding or they're not willing to concede or work through things to improve the state of the marriage or how that person feels, you're telling that other person to basically buck up and deal with it and just choose that person.
I'm telling that person that if happiness is what you're looking for in a marriage, you may need to get out. We've heard the "you complete me" narrative.
Well, I mean, the thing what I take from your point is a person should add to your happiness, not complete your state of happiness. I guess that's what you're getting. Right? Boom. But a person can definitely take away from your happiness.
True.
Can they subtract from it? If a person has the capability to add to your happiness or your life, they can also have the potential to subtract from it.
Just
right?
Like the example I gave you that happened at this very moment 11 years ago on Waikiki Beach.
Okay. As you keep subtracting from that person's happiness, doesn't that begin to drain that other person?
Yeah, I guess it could. But that's the thing, Walker. That's the thing. Why have you chosen this person? Again, I was honest with you before, and I will admit this. A lot of the reason I chose my wife is because she was making me so happy. She was making me happy.
Sure.
But she's a human, and so am I. There's nothing that exists on this earth that's going to make me happy 100% of the time. Nothing. Not even my wife.
Well, sure.
Not even my J's.
What I'm saying is, I don't know if it's fair, because you got to think I'm different from you, obviously, but we're all different. So that means every relationship is different.
True.
So I'm not sure if it's fair to look at it from what you're experiencing and expect that, hey, you're dealing with what I'm dealing with. So if I can do it, if I can stay committed, you should stay committed. I don't think that's fair.
I don't think I'm saying that. Is that
Okay.
the implication you're getting from my words?
I'm just saying every marriage is different, and
know.
we don't know why,
Walker,
what factors contribute to why a person says they're unhappy.
You're too far in. You're too far in, Walker. Again, think about the context of this. I'm thinking about at the onset of our marriage, the reasons at the time that I entered it.
Okay.
It was impossible. It's impossible for my wife to make me happy 100% of the time. Impossible.
Sure. But it's okay if you're unhappy though, right?
Yeah, that's the thing, and I know it's so nuanced, and you live in nuance. Ugh. But sorry, but my thing,
guys, please watch the YouTube of this. Go ahead,
Walker. My thing is, I'm not advocating for certain situations, like, you know, if you've got a spouse that's physically abusing you and that is leading to your unhappiness, I'm not saying stay. What I'm questioning is the reason, you know, as you assess your reasons for wanting to go down the aisle with that individual, if the meat of it is happiness, I urge you to retreat, or not retreat. That sounds kind of harsh.
What should be the reason?
Love. But Walker, not the Hollywood love that you like to, you know, sit down on the couch and watch on Netflix. I'm not talking about romantic comedies and all that crap. All that stuff is made to make money. None of that stuff is real. A lot of it's not real, I should say. But I'm talking about a love that transcends you feeling good. I'm talking about a love that makes you think so highly of a person that you will dredge yourself emotionally just for the opportunity to do it again the next day. Even if to a certain degree, or sometimes it may be working to your detriment.
Okay.
Finding that person who gives you a reason to hang in there. Because that person is not perfect, just like in my situation, I'm definitely not perfect. So for years, I expected a level of perfection out of my spouse. I did. That was not fair to me. It's definitely not fair to her.
Okay.
So that's the angle. I think you've gone into the inner workings of marriage a little further than I intended with my comments. I'm talking about as you're assessing that person and promoting them to a candidate for marital whatever.
I hear what you're saying, and there's merit to some of the points that you're making. I do believe that there is a place in your marriage where you really can be happy. I really do believe that. And from that, I look at it as this: marriage is really a partnership.
Yeah. And
I think my thing is this: there are a lot of people who are married on paper, but they're single in their heads.
Okay.
So what that means is they never transition from thinking about themselves and putting themselves first other than their spouse. You know, when you get into a marriage, you transition to think about your spouse. Like, as a husband, I'm serving my wife. Like, I'm thinking about her needs. I'm thinking about, and that can be a transition, especially if I've been single for quite some time. And so I think when you have two people who are not, to your point, are not perfect, but at the same time, they're thinking about the other person. They're putting the other person's needs above their own. You have a situation where you're going to have two people who are actually happy in their marriage. Doesn't mean you're going to be happy 24 hours, 7 days a week, but you're happy. So when I say, so again, reason why I'm challenging what you're saying to a degree is, if the woman says she's unhappy, who are you or I to be like, woman, please? She may really be unhappy. And it's possible to be unhappy. There are a lot of unhappy married people. And it ain't okay. Which is why people get divorced. Right?
Right. And Walker.
That's all I'm saying. Like,
I know. We're getting to the nuance on this one.
What I sense you're doing is you're saying you're unhappy. Some people really are legitimately unhappy. Some of the most loneliest people are married people. Is that not factual or not?
I'm thinking about it, but keep talking. This sounds good.
No, they're people who are miserable in their marriage. They're just existing in their marriage.
But I mean,
like that's a thing.
I had periods of misery.
So that's what I'm saying.
In the union with my wife. But I mean, I love that woman.
There are people who are divorced today who seriously love each other. So just because you get divorced doesn't mean you stop loving that person necessarily. There are people who love one another who are no longer married today. That is a possibility, Gat. And I think the reason why people get divorced is because they've lost sight of one word, commitment. And that what I mean by commitment is not necessarily saying we're just going to remain married, because again, there's a difference between existing and being committed. Committed is an action. Like I'm doing things in the marriage in order to help it grow, flourish, whatever. Right? That's commitment. And that's a decision I have to make every day I wake up. Like I'm going to be committed to this woman, not just in words, but in thoughts and deeds. So everything I do is for this woman. She wakes up every day. Everything I do is for this man. So when you have two people engaged in the marriage and committed, but you got a lot of people who stay married 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 40, 50 years. They are just existing. And what I'm saying is, okay, yeah, you're not going to be happy moment, but I would rather you not just be existing, be committed to the growth of the marriage, commit to it getting better, commit to it. You know what I mean? Like you never arrive in marriage. You should always be growing and advancing, right? So that's all I'm saying is that when people say they're unhappy, I think there is some legitimacy to what they're saying. I really do. And if I'm in a marriage with someone and they are demonstrating on a daily basis they're not committed to this, what does that do for me? It makes me feel isolated, lonely. If I'm not committed to that person, what do you think I'm doing to them? So yeah, I understand to your point. Yeah, it's not going to be perfect. You got to have some things you're going to have to work through. But I think what helps is that you have two people who says, okay, I'm not perfect. I'm not going to do everything right, but I'm committed to you and doing what it takes to make this thing work. And when I know my wife is in it and she knows I'm in it, I think no matter what we deal with, we got each other. And that's what I'm saying. I challenge the notion when someone says they're unhappy, you don't have context into really what makes that person unhappy. You really don't. So that person may legitimately be unhappy and they may feel hopeless in that marriage. Should they stay in it? That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. Let me ask you this and I asked you this via text, but we never talked about it because I was saving it for a moment just like this. Is divorce an option? In general, should divorce be an option?
Of course it is an option in general. Now, for the guy across the internet from you right now, no.
Okay.
No.
Why not?
Because I didn't get into this thing to divorce you.
That's sweet. But there's no circumstance in which you would get a divorce. See, that sounds really good, Gad, but we all have a breaking point.
True.
So when a person says divorce is not an option, you're saying I have no breaking point.
Well,
and it's human nature, whether it doesn't make us bad people, it's just human nature. Gatrey, if I tell you whatever you do, Gatrey, don't look up. What's in your mind right now?
Looking up.
Okay. Human nature, we like to test our boundaries. We like to test boundaries and where we can go and what we can and cannot do. We don't like being told what to do. I mean, in fact, we got a lot of people right now who are mad because they're being told to wear a mask and they're not doing it.
More on that later.
Right?
Yeah.
So my point is that we love to test the parameters and the boundaries about which we can say, do, act, and do what we want to do, right?
Right.
So when a person says, I am in it for the long haul, it almost, whether subconsciously or intentionally, opens the door for a person to test those boundaries. Okay, what's a person's breaking point? You got people out here that will do that. Maybe not your bride, but there are people out there that will test those boundaries. If you're not going anywhere, I can potentially take you for granted. And that is definitely something that's prevalent in human nature. We take things for granted. That's why this marriage thing takes work, is because we can easily allow ourselves to take that person that we at one point didn't take for granted. We start taking them for granted. It dates back to when we were children. I guarantee you, 3 months from now, a lot of those toys that YG got yesterday, he's not going to know where they are.
Bro, 3 minutes.
He's not going to care about them. Since a child, we've been conditioned to take things we had once coveted and wanted so bad. We've been conditioned to take it for granted. Marriage is no different. So what I'm saying is that when we get to a place to where things slow down and we get settled and we get used to one another, it's easy to take that person for granted if you don't set in your mind that I'm here for them, right? So what I'm saying is when you say that divorce isn't an option, you are denying the fact that you have a breaking point. And a person can take advantage of you or take you for granted so much to the point to where it can push you to that breaking point. And you're lying to yourself when you says, I'm not leaving under any circumstances. That's not true. That's not true. Am I wrong?
Well, you're not wrong.
So, I mean, again, I'm not
saying
divorce
is an option for you.
Nothing like that. But at the same time, I'm saying, dude, we have to be honest about what we're really trying to say is I want to be committed to you. That's my goal. I want to be committed to you, but a commitment is only as strong as two people doing it. Right?
Yeah.
And if I'm committed to something or to someone and they're not committed to me, they're telling me every day I'm not committed to you. What does that do for a person's peace of mind? How can you genuinely say, I'm not happy, but I'm reaching? What hope can you give that person if they're living with someone who's telling them in actions and words, I'm not really committed? What do you say to that person? What do you say to that person?
I say that's nuance. Have we pivoted?
It's also a realistic scenario.
Have we pivoted?
No.
Okay. Because it sounds like we're talking more about divorce than we're talking about unhappiness.
Well, she is divorced. That still doesn't have anything to do with what you were talking about.
The unhappiness is what I wanted to harp on.
That leads to divorce, is what I'm saying.
and that's my thing again, Walker. What were you in it for to begin with?
I think that's a fair question, but my thing is that, okay, let me ask you this. All things being equal, can you look at every couple and say, they were honest with themselves and each other before they got married?
No one is.
Okay. So
no one's 100% honest.
It's not an easy conversation to have on the front end, but it's definitely not an easy conversation to have on the back end. That's not an easy conversation to have.
True.
And there are couples who need a third party. Like they need counseling. Like they can't talk to each other, right? Like they need some type of intervention. And it takes the two of them being willing to want to do that. So what I'm saying is that oftentimes people are getting a situation like the lady who on the podcast you was listening to, and they feel hopeless. What do they do with that, Gat? Like it's easy to tell that lady, that person that, listen, your unhappiness shouldn't be that big of a factor, but my God, what does that woman have? What positives did that woman have to hold on to say, you know what, I'm not happy, but I got this. We don't know that woman's situation, is what I'm saying. So I think that can be very insensitive if you don't have context. That's all I'm saying. Now, you may be in it for the long haul, and bravo, so am I. But my situation affords me a very easy opportunity to be committed. Like, I had to be a sociopath to walk away from this amazing woman I'm married to. Like, but everyone is not in a scenario like that. And I have to understand that.
Well, you are a sociopath still. No, I see. I can understand what you're saying to a degree. Still feel like you've stretched the initial point of this, but I see where you're going.
Okay.
Well, I asked a question midway through your rant there. Is divorce an option for you?
Is it an option for me?
Yeah.
It's not an option necessarily for me. Let me step back. Divorce, it depends. I think it really depends. But for me and what we got going on, don't even consider it. It's not even.
So you don't have a breaking point either.
Huh?
So you do not possess a breaking point either.
I didn't say that.
I'm asking.
Oh, I do have a breaking point for sure.
Okay. Just curious.
But that's why I say it depends. It depends on what happens. Cheats on me. I haven't seen it from her.
Do you use any type of like? Do you use any type of like breathing aid when you're swimming through nuance, or are you just that good at it to where you don't need like any scuba gear or anything?
Why do you hate nuance so much? Why do you deny its mere existence?
Because you know how I deal, Walker, and I'm not saying it's the best way, but you know how I'm wired. It is either thumbs up or thumbs down. With you, Walker, it is, well, what is a thumb? And what about the other four fingers? Who cares? Is it this or this? And then with you, it's like, well, it could be this. It could be that. You could put one finger. I mean,
don't ever be a therapist. Just for the sake of people needing help, don't ever be.
I'm not saying nuance is wrong. I'm just saying I'm wired differently. I'm not saying the way I'm wired is right. I'm compelled to learn more about these nuanced waters that you swim in on a daily basis. That's why I think this whole situation is so great and so dynamic, just because you've stretched me a lot since the first recording, the first official recording. Like, I've had to challenge some of my definitive thinking and open the door just a little bit to a little bit of nuance. I've had to do that. That's a part of that. I think that's part of my maturation as a person. Doesn't mean I like it. Doesn't mean it makes me happy.
Oh, I know you don't like it.
But I'm not going to divorce nuance.
I see what you did there.
Thank you.
I see what you did there. You got anything else on this, bro? This is a good topic.
I think so too. And Walker, forgive me, man. I was super rude because we should have allowed you to update us.
I'm fine. Yeah, I'm fine, Gatrey.
I never do this. This is so out of character for me.
Yeah, you never do this. I'm fine, by the way.
You've given me a lot to think about in terms of what my thoughts were, and thank you for that. And this is going to be one I replay a lot, just to expand my mindset a little bit, and I hope you do the same a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, my wife and I have had conversations about that whole topic of divorce, and mind you, let me be clear here. I don't want to miss this opportunity. When I say it depends on divorce being an option, here's what I'm not saying. I'm not saying that should be your go-to. Like, that should be the first option on the table that you run to. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you have to be a man or woman and at least address whatever the issue is. At least try to address the issue. I think you should do whatever you can before reaching for divorce. Like, I think that should be an option, but it should be the last option. It really should, because you should honor your word. You should honor your commitments. But if you get deep in that marriage and you realize, you know what, this is not what we said we were going to do when we stood in front of God and a crowd of witnesses and said we were going to do, so this changes things, then I think divorce becomes an option. I also don't think divorce should be something that you hold over your spouse's head either. Prior to being married, I've been in a relationship with a woman who was manipulative. And I said I would never get in a situation like that again, or get involved with someone who is manipulative. So I don't believe in manipulating people by fear of, hey, if you don't get your way, or if you don't bend to my will, I'm divorced. Like, I think that's corny. So when I say divorce is an option, I'm saying when it gets to a point in your marriage to where there's like, you don't see evidence of a commitment, it's been addressed, you tried everything you can out of that person, they're not committed and they're indifferent about how their lack of commitment affects you, and it doesn't appear to be willing to try to grow and change the relationship, then divorce may become an option. That's all I'm saying in that regard.
Okay.
And oftentimes it doesn't have to be something extreme as an abusive relationship or cheating, because oftentimes that's trivial. That's a non-brainer. But there's that, again, gray area where you've taken each other for granted to where you built a whole life outside of your marriage apart from that person.
Goodness.
And that's dangerous. And that's where people feel lonely. That's where people feel trapped. That's where people feel like they're by themselves and they're just roommates at that point. And I'm saying you have to kind of reconsider what commitment means as opposed to just being in a marriage and existing. I don't think no one deserves that. And I think that's where unhappiness can seriously creep in. And it'd be legitimate. So, anyway.
Can you breathe louder on the mic, please?
So,
all right, Pastor Walker.
I hate you.
Well, I think we've done enough damage here, Walker. There's only one other thing to do right now.